Welcome back to Full Circle Ancestry's Slovakia and More tour. This is part 2. Modra, Malý, and mining. Recall in part 1, we covered the neighboring capital cities of Vienna and Prague before wrapping up in Bratislava, Slovakia's capital city in the far west of the country. Now let's head out to begin our journey to the east. Keep in mind this portion of the journey was part of a guided tour with a roughly fixed agenda, although a couple adjustments were made along the way, so my scope of coverage for each stop varies by the nature of the tour's focus. After a short half-hour ride skirting the northwestern wine region of Slovakia, more on Slovak wine in a later episode, we arrived in Modra. This village has an interesting history of its own, but we visited for the specific reason of visiting its famous porcelain factory, Slovenská ľudová majolika Modra. They've been making pottery and teaching the craft here since 1883. Although their volumes have decreased with competition from mass production, they seem to have quite a lot in process at the moment. We were given a demonstration by a gentleman who's been throwing uniquely handmade pottery here for over 50 years. He knew just the right amount of water needed on the surface, and applied opposing pressure inside and out of the vessel with an effortlessness that belied the difficulty in making this lovely piece for our observation. All the pottery here is turned by hand, as well as hand-dipped in the white base material, painted by hand in the various color schemes, and fired in kilns with a prescribed temperature profile to set the piece fast and bring out its vibrant colors. Though short, our visit to Modra was a good way to get the juices of adventure flowing. Next, we headed to Trnava, a town about another half-hour's drive on our way east. First stop is the Roman Catholic Church of St. John the Baptist, the cathedral of the Archdiocese of Trnava, established as such by Pope John Paul II. The interior features amazingly ornate walls and ceilings with paintings, barrel vaults, a giant carved wooden main altar from the 1600s measuring over 20 meters or 67 feet in height, as well as other gilded wood carvings and solemn statuary. Trnava has at times been referred to as Little Rome or Malý, as it is said in Slovak. This moniker seems to stem from the high concentration of churches and a center of religious importance. The scholar Matthias Bell wrote in the early part of the 1700s, quote, "You could say it is a town which is appearing as Rome on a small scale, and this as to temples and also sacred institutions which were infused within it. Truly that's why the people calls it a little Rome, knowing that small things are compared with big ones." End quote. Frankly, that doesn't make much sense to me, but whether a direct comparison to Rome is pertinent or not, Trnava has its own appeal. A walk near the town's Holy Trinity Square reveals the town's Marian column, a couple of fine Latin inscriptions atop its municipal buildings, the Holy Trinity column, and even a maypole, the springtime tradition that had been recently erected. From the southeast corner of the square, we see the city tower and the church tower of Holy Trinity Church just across from the square. The old center of town had its share of cozy narrow streets, some with ever lovelier views as you round each corner, some less elegant yet still intriguing. Did I mention I'm a sucker for a sundial? We left Trnava with a good introduction and a sense that there's much more to explore. For one thing, we didn't see much of the city's historical protective walls, unusually made mainly from brick. We saw just enough of it to catch a glimpse of this happy-looking fellow on guard. Thus we departed, continuing our drive another hour and a half or so to the east. The approach to our next stop, Banská Štiavnica, involves following some winding and narrow roads on our way up to the old mining town's heart. The city's historic center is a dense cluster of row houses, storefronts, churches, an old town hall, commemorative columns, and most strikingly, the Starý zámok, or old protective castle standing majestically above its surroundings. The complex sits 630 meters above sea level, built up around the original parish church of the town and further strengthened as the Ottoman threat increased. Even to a layman, some of the additions are visually distinct due to differing architectural styles in vogue over time. As we rise above its main tower, the hillside in the background becomes evident. It is actually the rim of an ancient volcanic caldera that acts as a nest in which Banská Štiavnica is perched. Once the third largest city in the Kingdom of Hungary, this once lauded silver mine stopped being profitable more than 100 years ago. Another landmark in the distance beyond the city is the Calvaria, what in English we would call the Stations of the Cross, mimicking the final suffering of Jesus. This one was built in the mid-1700s and only quite recently restored to its former glory. It involves about 100 meters or over 300 feet of climbing from base to summit. A stroll through the center of town reveals the Marian column and its own Holy Trinity column. The hilly nature of the town is revealed in the steepness of the road along the short distance from the front to the back of the old town hall. It is also evident in a sweep along the main street, here known as Kamarowska, revealing a tie to the largely German workforce who brought their mining experience to the town centuries ago. An engaging display unfolds along a wall below Stary Zamok, showcasing the town's heritage and its symbols past and present. Banská Štiavnica was a powerhouse in particular as a silver producer, but more fundamentally it was a mining innovation center, with a mining academy founded in 1735, eventually becoming the Academy of Mining and Forestry, the first technical university in the world. Its old headquarters is today surrounded by a wonderful botanical garden, complete with giant sequoias gifted by the United States and now nearly 150 years old. Did I mention I'm a sucker for a sundial? Fortunately for the lucky traveler, Banská Štiavnica has more than its share of spires, columns, towers, and other such historical pointy bits. Plus, it has at least a couple of more modern ones in the form of this local craft brewery's tanks. In a final sweeping panorama, we sense the rim of the ancient, extinct volcano, and another protective fortress known as Nový Zámok, or Newcastle, comes into view. Nový Zámok was created in the middle of the 1500s as an additional measure of defense for the town against the Ottoman encroachment. We close out with a final look at the top of the Holy Trinity column and the facade of the Church of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. Next time, look forward to castle culture and conservation as the Slovakia and more tour continues. Thanks for watching today. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Goodbye for now.